What happens when a prehistoric predator reclaims land it hasn't nested on in over 30 years? On a quiet stretch of Florida's Sanibel Island, something wild is stirring, and it's forcing locals to rethink what it really means to coexist with nature. The return of the crocodile, a story of survival, climate shifts, and human reckoning for the first time in at least 3 decades. American crocodiles may be mating on Sanibel Island, Florida. The discovery, made by the Sanibel Captiva Conservation Foundation (SCF), has ignited both wonder and wariness. Could it be that this ancient apex predator is making a true comeback, not just as a stray visitor, but as a reproducing resident? Until recently, conservationists believed only female crocodiles were living on Sanibel, with no evidence of viable mating. But now, 2 crocodiles have been seen engaging in what experts call typical courting behavior, and that changes everything. A nest, if confirmed, would mark a pivotal turning point in the region's conservation history. Sanibel Island has long stood on the edge of the crocodile's preferred climate range. Historically, it was simply too cold for successful nesting. But climate change is quietly rewriting that script. As global and regional temperatures rise, so do the odds that these cold-blooded reptiles will expand their territories farther north than ever before. Chris Lehovich, Wildlife and Habitat Management Director at SCF, explained that recent successful nesting at Rookery Bay, a site even farther north, suggests Sanibel could now provide the conditions necessary for crocodile reproduction. 3 significant storm surges over the last 2.5 years have turned most water bodies on Sanibel into brackish habitats, Lehovich wrote, and that's exactly what crocodiles prefer. One Sanibel resident, Carolyn David, recently found herself hosting a 10-foot crocodile in her backyard. At first, she thought it was a lone female. Now, she suspects it may be a male scouting territory. Her reaction was understandably mixed. "It's the most incredible creature you ever saw," she said, marveling at its ancient beauty, then adding, "This is their territory. It's not ours." Her words are striking, because they're not just about one crocodile. They reflect a growing sentiment in areas where wild animals are reclaiming lost ground. Maybe we're not the only ones with a claim to the land. Let's not forget, in the 1970s, the American crocodile was on the brink of extinction, with only a few hundred left. Thanks to decades of federal and state protections, that number has risen to about 2,000. Still listed as threatened, these animals remain rare, shy, and highly sensitive to environmental shifts. But their slow, silent resurgence offers a beacon of hope. And it's not just crocodiles. Across the globe, similar comebacks are happening. A bird once thought extinct reappeared on a remote island in Oceania. A rare mammal was spotted again in England after decades. These stories aren't just about animals, they're about resilience, balance, and the healing power of time and care. So how should we respond when nature begins to recover in our own backyards? For some, it's unnerving. For others, it's a sign that we're doing something right. But the lesson is clear. When we give wildlife the space and safety it needs, it remembers the way home. Commentary: in a world increasingly defined by destruction, extinction, and loss, stories like this remind us that redemption is still possible. But with that return comes responsibility. These creatures aren't villains, they're survivors. And if they're bold enough to come back, we should be brave enough to make room. We often talk about living in harmony with nature, but that harmony will sometimes look like a 700-pound crocodile lounging in your backyard. Scary? Maybe. But also extraordinary. This isn't just a crocodile story. It's a story about us, about whether we're willing to adjust our comfort zones to make space for the wild to breathe again. Because if we're not ready to live alongside what we nearly erased, maybe we haven't really learned from our mistakes. And that's the real danger, not the crocodile in the grass, but the apathy in our hearts.